Hidden Fronts, the untold story of currency wars. When we hear war, most of us think of guns, bombs, and soldiers. Yet some of history's most devastating conflicts weren't fought with bullets. They were waged with printing presses, interest rate decisions, and exchange rates. Battles not covered in school textbooks, silent but powerful enough to topple nations. These are currency wars. What is a currency war? Once you start noticing them, you'll see that finance has shaped empires as much as any general on the battlefield. It's not just about economics. Currency wars determine who can eat, who must obey, and who holds power. And they are still ongoing today, quietly, invisibly, yet affecting every number in your wallet. The principle is simple. Use money as a weapon. This could involve deliberately devaluing your currency, pumping cheap credit into markets to destabilize rivals, or hoarding gold to exert pressure on those in need. On paper, it looks clever, but in reality, it's like chemical warfare for the economy, hurting your enemy while poisoning yourself. Early currency conflicts. The Great Depression beggar thy neighbor race. One of the first modern instances occurred after the 1929 crash. Economies collapsed and countries desperately tried to sell their goods abroad. When global demand fell, the solution was competitive currency devaluation. In 1931, Britain left the gold standard and the pound dropped. In 1933, the U.S. reduced the dollar's gold content. France, Italy, Japan, they all raced to cheapen their money. But instead of reviving trade, it tightened global economic stress. Imports became more expensive, living standards fell, and this tension helped pave the way to World War II. Roman Empire collapse. Currency wars are not just a modern phenomenon. Rome fought its version 2,000 years ago. Its power relied on the silver denarius. As wars grew costly, emperors found an easy way: mix silver with cheaper metals. Initially, the difference was minor. Over time, coins that were nearly pure silver contained less than 5% silver. This was the ancient equivalent of printing money, with predictable results: inflation, loss of trust, and eventual economic collapse. The barbarians at the gates were not Rome's only problem. Its monetary policy had already sabotaged it. Bretton Woods and a new battleground. After World War II, the Bretton Woods system was established. The dollar was pegged to gold, and other currencies were pegged to the dollar. The goal was stability, but it created a new power game. Controlling the dollar also meant controlling gold flows, allowing the U.S. to exert economic pressure without firing a shot. However, by the late 1960s, the U.S. was printing more dollars than it had gold to back. Vietnam War expenses and domestic programs widened the gap. Foreign governments noticed and demanded gold. In 1971, Nixon ended dollar convertibility to gold. Bretton Woods collapsed, and the world entered the era of floating exchange rates, a new age of currency wars. Modern examples and impacts. The Plaza Accord, Japan's lost decades. In the 1980s, Japan was rapidly growing economically. The U.S. was uneasy. The 1985 Plaza Accord intentionally depreciated the U.S. dollar while boosting the yen and the German mark. The yen doubled in 2 years. Japanese exports became expensive, asset bubbles swelled, and eventually burst. Japan faced decades of stagnation. The U.S. didn't fire a single bullet. It wielded currency as a weapon. The 1997 Asian crisis. Currency wars often don't look like wars. They appear as policy debates, but the consequences are real. Factories shut down, millions lost jobs, and savings disappeared overnight. In 1997, the Thai baht collapsed. The peg to the dollar was abandoned, and the crisis spread across Asia. Indonesia, South Korea, Malaysia Currencies plunged, economies contracted, millions were thrown into poverty. Today, Currency War 4.0. Economists call the current era Currency War 4.0. Interest rates hit historic lows. Quantitative easing floods markets with liquidity, and sanctions act as financial weapons. The US and China are quietly competing for global currency influence. China promotes the yuan internationally and accumulates gold. Emerging economies face a harsh dilemma. Lower rates risk capital flight. Raise rates risk economic slowdown. Big players control the field. Pandemic-Induced Acceleration. The 2020 pandemic sped up this silent war. Governments printed unprecedented amounts of money. In the US alone, trillions were created in 2 years. Initially, markets surged. Unemployment fell, but the bill eventually came due. By 2022, inflation reached a 40-year high. The Federal Reserve raised rates sharply. A stronger dollar made imports costlier abroad, triggered debt crises, and destabilized weaker currencies. Actions that stabilize one nation can destabilize dozens. The future of currency wars and personal impact. History shows currency wars rarely end cleanly. Usually something breaks. A currency collapses, a new system arises, or political turmoil forces change. In the 17th century, the Dutch guilder dominated trade. In the 19th century, it was the British pound. In the 20th century, the US dollar. Each transition was turbulent. Today, the question is, what's next? Will the dollar retain dominance for 50 more years? Will central bank digital currencies create a multipolar system? Or will decentralized cryptocurrencies gain enough trust to challenge the old order? These aren't abstract questions. They affect your savings, your shopping costs, and job security. The most dangerous aspect of currency wars is their invisibility. Bombs announce themselves. Currency losing 20% only hits when groceries cost more. By the time headlines report it, the damage is done. How to protect yourself in a currency war. Financial literacy is crucial. Understanding inflation, central bank actions, and the use of the financial system allows you to safeguard yourself. Diversify your assets. Hold value-preserving instruments. Recognize that bank balances alone don't guarantee security. Money is not neutral. It's a strategic tool, sometimes a weapon. Winners aren't always the most productive. They're often the most powerful. Losers are those who realize they were in the battle too late. Debasement in Rome, devaluations in the 1930s, the Plaza Accord in the 1980s, quantitative easing in the 2010s. Names change, but the playbook stays the same. Next time you hear about a rate change, currency adjustment, or sanction, don't see it as abstract economics. See it as the opening moves of a war. And remember, you don't have to be a soldier to be a casualty. First, understand the game. Second, act before the storm reaches your door. Build real wealth, not just paper claims. Question the system, follow the patterns, and never forget, in a world where money is a weapon, the safest place is where it can't hit you. If this gave you a new perspective, subscribe now. History always has the answers.